Self-optimization. Let's get into it. It is a real problem. Morning routines, drinking mushroom coffee while standing in an ice bath, journaling gratitude, listening to affirmations, and simultaneously checking their resting heart rate. Because self-development has actually become self-judgment. We've become obsessed with fixing ourselves. Overall, the message is subtle but powerful. I am not enough. You are not enough. Happiness isn't found in achievement, it's found in appreciation. And appreciation is found in something that most people really struggle with. Being present, recognizing who you are, where you are, and what you are right now. So here's my question. Today I want to talk about something that seems to be everywhere right now. Optimization. You know, how we're all supposed to live perfectly all the time. It's an interesting concept and I can understand where it comes from. And I thought it'd be really interesting to explore it because there's been a lot of stuff in the media about it recently. And let's face it, it starts in a good place. Everyone's trying to be better, right? Everyone's trying to be better versions of themselves. Or is that what's happening? Because actually, what is actually happening is we're tracking our sleep, we're tracking our steps, we're tracking our calories, our habits, our moods. Some people are even tracking their tracking, which is like wild when you stop and think about it. Some of us have got morning routines that last longer than our actual jobs. And I'm sure there are even people that are drinking mushroom coffee while standing in an ice bath, journaling gratitude, listening to affirmations, and simultaneously checking their resting heart rate. Obviously, I'm having a bit of fun with this, but it is a real problem. Or at least it can be for some people. Because if you're not doing all of that, you're wasting your potential. That's the message that's out there more often than not. So here's my question. At what point does self-development stop helping us and start becoming something we just feel inadequate about? Let's get into it. Because I want to start by saying, don't get me wrong. I'm all about self-improvement, self-development, all of that stuff. I really am, because I've made a career out of helping people achieve that. I want people to grow. I want people to be better. I want people to move towards the lives that they want. And I understand a lot of the reasons why people don't. I understand that life is messy, complex, and difficult. It's difficult. There are so many moments where you just had enough. It feels really overwhelming. So I understand that we want to optimize, some of the reasons why we might not be getting to where we want to get in life is because we're tired. So let's sort our sleep out. Maybe we're a bit unfit. So let's sort our fitness out. Maybe there's some things going on with our mood and our attention that could be solved with food. Yeah, maybe all of that's true. Maybe. But actually, quite a lot of the time, the biggest problem, I think, is stress. I've certainly learned that. Stress is unbelievable. The things it does to us is just... I struggle to find the words how impactful stressful can be to us as human beings. So I do understand that we might desperately want to believe that some of these things that we can do to optimize ourselves will reduce stress and will make us feel better and make everything okay. But many times what I see is that a lot of people are just hugely out of alignment with what they really want out of their life. Perhaps there's been some decisions in life that have not been really decisions. They've just found themselves in situations. They found themselves in that job. They found themselves in that relationship. They found themselves in that friendship circle. And after a certain amount of time, it becomes really difficult to leave that job, to leave that person, to leave that friendship circle. And you start to rationalize with yourself, hey, life's not too bad. It could be worse. I could have this, could have that. I could not have this. I could not have that. And all of that, once again, is understandable. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to show that I understand that we get into a place, or we can get into a place, where we become so desperate to feel better that we become obsessed over optimizing everything that feels controllable. And that's the point I'd like to make. I'm not here taking the piss out of people that optimize. I optimize. There are things I optimize about. I've recently had to optimize my heart rate. Well, I'll say that. I've been tracking my heart rate. I've been tracking it to find out what's going on. I've had high blood pressure recently because I've had a lot of stress on, and I'm managing it. I managed to bring it down. I'm very happy to say. But that was obvious. And some of this stuff we're doing, I'm not sure is hugely obvious and actually can become quite stressful, because somewhere along the line, self-development has actually become self-judgment. We've become obsessed with fixing ourselves. Now, here's the thing. I'm not a big fan of fixing myself. In fact, for me, it can become a bit of a red flag. When somebody says they're all fixed, I'm like, oh no. Oh no. I just don't get angry anymore. Or I'm totally in control of my emotions. I'm totally over my childhood trauma. I'm completely sober and will never drink again. I'm absolutely sure of it. These are dangerous things to say to yourself, because for anything, if you're spiritual in any way, you're really tempting the universe. And let's face it, there's a lot of us on social media. It's a big part of our life. It's unrealistic for some to believe that they can live without social media. Certainly is for me. My career is heavily dependent on social media in many cases. So I understand that. And I'm not going to suggest that you stop social media. What I do want to point out, though, is that the majority of scrolls through social media usually result in us figuring out that we're not enough. We're being told we're not enough. You need a better body. You need a better mindset, more discipline, more money. You need a side hustle or a six-pack. You need to be cold plunging or gratitude journaling. Or simply, you just need to be vision boarding. Whichever, they all have their place. I'm not mocking them. I'm just saying it's a lot. It's a lot when you're already questioning things about yourself, when you're already feeling insecure or having low self-worth or just having these feelings that are really uncomfortable. And then we scroll on social media because we've taught ourselves that it's the way that we escape, and we come off feeling even worse. Even worse, because now we don't do any of these things either. And then there are some that, to couple with all of that, they get all of that done before 6 a.m. in the morning. And it's like, wow, okay, cool. So you get up like, I don't know, 7, half 7, 8 maybe if you're lucky. And you get on there and, I don't know, Phil has already done it. It's done all that stuff. It's like, cool. You're really great, Phil. Me, however, I haven't done any of that. In fact, I've just woke up and I've already got a headache and I already feel stressed. And actually, I still feel tired. And I've got a really big day ahead of me today. And, it's that comparison that creeps in. It's not on purpose. It just happens. It's how we start our day. Because overall, the message is subtle but powerful. I am not enough. You are not enough. That's the message that comes through from social media for most of us eventually, if we scroll for long enough. Because this creates something that's really quite dangerous. And that's chronic dissatisfaction. Because the truth is, no matter how much progress you make in life, there's always another level. There's always another level. Have you ever noticed this? You achieve something that you've been gunning for years maybe, and then 5 minutes later, your brain says, what's next? Now, you could look at that and go, that's the quality of a high achiever, and maybe you're right. But another thing that's also true is that you might lose weight. You've been trying to lose weight for a really long time, and you finally get down to that goal weight, and it's taken a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of problems, and you get there, and now you decide you want some muscle. Because although you've lost the weight that used to bother you, you'd like to look a bit more muscular. And I suppose that's okay. You might get the promotion at work, and then eventually you want another promotion. You want that office, or you want that job, or you actually like the look of the way that looks over there, or something like that. You might buy a house, your dream house, only to find that you actually now want a nicer house after you've been in it for a little while. Or maybe you're brave and you start your own business and it's really, really hard. And you finally, at one point, you couldn't even imagine starting your business. It was the hardest thing. The procrastination was real. But you start that business. And then months later, you start looking at someone else that's making 10 times more than you are. And we compare. And all of a sudden, what we have is not good enough anymore, even though one day we were dreaming of having it. Because here's the truth. Human beings are absolutely terrible at enjoying success. And we are particularly skilled at moving the goalposts of what we want in our lives. And it feels like sometimes that social media has turbocharged that problem, because every time you reach a goal, someone else seems to be 10 steps ahead of you, which very often makes us feel less than or not good enough in some way. And sometimes maybe that was the intention. Here's something I've often laughed about. with myself and others. And there's been many times where I've laughed about it with friends, family, even clients at times. A lot of us spend years wanting things, telling ourselves that when that thing happens, that life will be better in some way, more bearable. We might even be happy and content. But then we get that thing and we complain about it. We might tell ourselves that we want to start a family, we want children. And then we find out how hard it is to have children, and we complain about the children and how exhausting it is to have children. Certainly done that. We might spend a while single to really find ourselves wanting a relationship. Then we get in a relationship and then we're annoyed by the person or the relationship and how restricting it all of a sudden feels and how moody that person is in the morning or whatever. We might want that promotion at work, as I said, and then we find that that promotion is actually quite stressful. That job is quite stressful. And actually, you're not really enjoying it. You're taking it home with you now. Yeah, we've got more money, but I feel like all I do is work. And then maybe because of that promotion, we get the bigger house. And everybody in the house is happy. We've all got a little bit more room. But now everything is a little bit more expensive. The tax has gone up. The cleaning is much more. The gardening is never ending. And we just feel like we're getting swamped by the things that we say that we want. Because the truth is, being human is being a walking, talking, complete contradiction. It really is, a lot of the time. And this is the bit that I think is missed. This is the part that I think is missed. We are not perfect. We're not supposed to be. And we are contradicting. We do want to give up alcohol, but also want to get drunk. Whichever it is, this is what happens. People want to optimize their life and they feel really motivated towards doing the things that they feel are going to help them with optimizing their life, ultimately helping them to lead a better life. But actually, when it comes to do it, they don't really want to. Or it's really hard. Or over time, it makes you miserable and tired. These are things that are true because we spend half our lives chasing the things that we think we want. And then we spend the other half of our life adapting to the things we thought we wanted. And I think this is because happiness isn't found in achievement. It's found in appreciation. And appreciation is found in something that most people really struggle with, myself included at times. Being present, recognizing who you are, where you are, and what you are right now. Because a lot of people think that happiness is dopamine. A lot of people are talking about dopamine. A lot of people are talking about chasing dopamine in varying different ways in their life. Some are very obviously destructive. Others are much more subtle. Because a lot of people do think dopamine is happiness. But I don't think it is. I think dopamine is anticipation. It's the pursuit. It's the wanting. It's the craving, the chasing. That anticipation. That's what dopamine is. And the big problem is that we're living in a world that's designed to keep us chasing at all times. Another notification, another video, another purchase, another goal, another achievement, another dopamine hit. And eventually we just become addicted to becoming instead of learning how to be. And this, I believe, is why really successful looking people often have this emptiness within them. And they have no way of understanding why. And that's really because they've mastered achievement in some areas, but they haven't practiced contentment. They haven't learned how to be content with what they have. This was kind of like why I came up with the MADE model, because my fundamental belief, my genuine belief is that self-development isn't about becoming somebody else. It's about becoming more aligned and more understanding, more compassionate about who you actually are right now. It's becoming aligned with yourself, becoming aligned with your morals, your ambitions, your drivers, and your environments. Because a lot of people, they build their ambitions before they understand themselves, before they understand their morals. They start looking for goals that probably come from somebody or somewhere else, which is understandable because if you don't know yourself, then you're going to take cues from other people. Problem is, they chase the goals that society told them they should want, and then they wonder why achieving them doesn't feel fulfilling in any way. And it's because the goal wasn't theirs. It was borrowed. And borrowed ambition creates borrowed happiness, temporary happiness, fragile happiness, conditional happiness. Because it's my strong belief that real growth happens when ambition aligns with your values. that is when I've seen progress feel meaningful in my life and within others. Because here's something else I've noticed, something that I found quite fascinating to look into, and it's the rise of AI. Now, I'm not somebody that thinks AI is the devil or evil or anything like that. I think it can be a very useful tool. But I think we have to, like everything in our life, create some sort of boundaries around it, or at least recognize a line where things maybe go from something you are using to something that's using you. Because AI can be super helpful. It can help us write, it can help us think, plan, create, research, automate, organize, and even generate. And that is really incredible. It can take away some of the mundane, boring jobs that happen in our lives. That's true. And I'm behind all that. However, if technology keeps making life easier, what skills become more important? Well, human skills, communication, emotional intelligence, resilience, empathy, self-awareness, and our relationships. These things now rise to the top as things that we need to be focused on and we need to practice and become better at and to really pay attention and have an awareness around. Because these are the very things that people often neglect when they're chasing productivity or optimization. Because with the best will in the world, AI can't build you confidence. AI can't heal your resentments. AI can't take responsibility for your choices. AI can't create your character. And here's the hard bit. That is still your job. So this doesn't have to be complicated. We don't have to write a really big long list of all the things we want to optimize. In fact, what I would encourage is for us to look at what we're already doing, what we already are, who we already are, how we're already living our lives. And if there was a challenge that I would throw out there this week, it would be to ask yourself this one question. What am I trying to improve and why? And for once, it's not what, it is why. Why do I want that promotion? Why do I want more money? Why do I want that body? Why do I want the business? Why do I want the recognition? And if the answer is because it genuinely matters to you, go for it. Absolutely. I encourage it all day long. However, if the answer is because you're trying to prove something, then that might require a little bit more attention. Because I've never seen achievement permanently fix any insecurities. Because really, the only thing I've ever seen work is understanding them. And to do that, we have to accept them first. Now, I get it. Who wants to put your hands up if you want to be insecure about something? Absolutely no one took their hand up. But it's only when we accept that we are insecure about this thing, that we then have that ability to look at it with curiosity. And it's only when we accept something does it belong to us. And when it belongs to us, we can change it. We have some autonomy. And that is the key, in my opinion, because the goal of self-development is never perfection. Perfection is impossible. Please always remember that when you're pursuing it. It's impossible. You have set yourself an impossible mission, which means you'll never achieve it, which means it will probably only ever result in failure. How do you feel about that? It's a good question to ask yourself. So if the goal is not about perfection, what is it about? Well, it's about awareness. It's not about becoming flawless. It's becoming conscious. It's understanding yourself deeply enough to be able to make better decisions. Because I promise you, the answer isn't that you need to become a completely different person. You don't need a 12-step morning routine that needs to be completed by 6 a.m. every day. You don't need to optimize every single second of your life. You simply need to become a little bit more intentional than you were yesterday. Because that's the person we're trying to compete against if we're ever going to be doing that. It's not the people on Instagram or social media in general. It's yourself. And when I say that, I'm not talking about setting grand goals overnight. I'm talking about, did I drink more water today than I did yesterday? Yes, tick, winning. Because it's about small improvements, consistent effort, and aligned actions. That is enough. And they don't have to be massive. They don't have to be groundbreaking. They just have to be something that helps you out, that makes you feel better, that makes you feel like you're doing okay. And okay is enough. It really is. Because ironically, when you stop obsessing over becoming your best self, you actually become a much better version of yourself. As always, if you're interested in the Self-Made course, the link is in the description. I encourage you to have a look at it. It really is helping so many people do all the things I spoke about during this episode. It looks into your morals, who you are. It looks into your ambitions, what you want. It looks into your drivers, why you want it. and it looks into your environments, how are you going to get it? Who are the people around you? Is your environment supporting you, or is it supporting the person you don't want to be? Which is it? It's a really, really helpful course, and a lot of people have found it a lot of fun, albeit slightly challenging at times. Anyway, enough about that. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next week on another episode of the Johnny Lawrence Podcast.